Good morning and welcome back to another episode of This Week in Magic Online Finance. My name is Chaz Andres, and as always we're going to get started this week with the news. And of course, how could the biggest story of this week be anything other than the impending Hogaak ban? Unfortunately, I can't say much more about it because this video is recorded on Sunday afternoon. It's going live a few hours before the WotC banned and restricted announcement, so as of now, Hogaak is still perfectly legal to play in Modern. That said, I cannot imagine that Wizards of the Coast lets this thing run rampant in Modern for even one day longer, right? I mean, Hogaak, it's gonna be gone. Once Hogaak is banned, we're going to see some Modern movement. Specifically, I expect the decks that are going to be better in a post-Hogaak world to see some price spikes over the next couple of weeks. We're talking about decks like Mono Green Tron, Grixis Urza, and Mono Red Phoenix. Now, I've already started to see some price movement from some of the Grixis Urza staples, and we're going to be talking about those in detail a little bit later on. But I wouldn't be surprised to see some movement from the key cards in other decks as well. Cards like Karn Liberated, Ugin the Spirit Dragon, Arclight Phoenix, and Finale of Promise, they should be starting to trend upward over the next couple of weeks. You should also watch out for any other potential bans that might happen alongside Hogaak this week. It doesn't seem particularly likely to me, since WotC likes to move slowly and deliberately with these things, sometimes too slowly and deliberately. But it is possible that WotC will decide, enough is enough, and we're also going to act something like Faithless Looting alongside Hogaak tomorrow. And if that does happen, you're not going to want to touch, for example, Phoenix pieces, because that deck doesn't really work without Faithless Looting, at least in our current understanding of that deck. So definitely make sure that you understand the potential implications of all possible bannings before you buy any Modern staples this week, because the metagame could end up looking a lot different, especially if things other than Hogaak get the axe. Let's move on now to Gaining Ground, where in Standard, the card that gained the most ground this week was actually Kethis, the Hidden Hand, which jumped 3 tickets from 2 up to 5. And for the first time in quite some time, we've actually got a Standard card that's gaining ground because of a Standard deck. I know! So the deck itself is kind of bonkers. It uses Kethis, Diligent Excavator, and Mox Amber to create this weird graveyard recursion loop where you end up milling out your opponent, and it's the kind of combo deck that's actually a lot easier to play online than in the world of paper Magic. This deck isn't broken or anything, don't think it's gonna, take the Standard metagame by storm, but it's a lot of fun and people are buying these cards to try it out before it rotates in September. Kethis is still gaining value for now, as are some of the deck's other key cards like Lazav and Teferi Time Raveler. I wouldn't be surprised if they keep gaining ground for the next couple of weeks, but there's not a lot of long-term room here. For one, this deck is going to rotate in late September regardless, and for another, I feel like this is more of a curiosity right now. It's not going to break the metagame in half. Honestly, a lot of people are buying in on MTGO because it's more expensive to, buy a bunch of gems and open a bunch of packs on Arena, so there's a little bit of a price ceiling there too. If this deck gets a lot cheaper in Arena, people are going to move over there because that's where people play the most Standard anyway. But for now, it's just easier to assemble this deck on MTGO, so prices are going to keep on rising until it reaches an equilibrium point. I'd honestly probably sell my pieces of this deck at some point in the next week or so, but it's not that expensive regardless, so if you just want to kick this deck around, you might as well just buy in now and have some fun for a couple of weeks. It seems pretty awesome. Let's move over to Modern now, where the 2 cards that gained the most ground this week were Mishra's Bauble and Urza Lord High Artificer. Mishra's Bauble gained about 5 tickets, going from 13 up to 18, while Urza gained about 3, going from 11 to 14. Now, I'm highlighting both cards here instead of one because they both went up in price for the same reason: belief that Grixis Urza will be the new deck to beat once Hogaak is banned. And I tend to agree. I wouldn't be surprised if both of these cards are on next week's gainers list as they continue to climb in price, and I wouldn't be surprised if other staples from Grixis Urza join them, cards like Mox Opal and maybe Ensnaring Bridge. In fact, I expect Grixis Urza to be the hot new deck in Modern once we do learn for a fact that Hogaak is banned, and if you want to get in, I'd get in now. People are definitely getting in ahead of the rush, and I can't blame them. Let's move on now to our biggest loser, where in Standard it was Karn, the Great Creator, which continues to seesaw all over the dang place. It went from 25 down to 20, then up to 35, now it's down to 28 and continuing to drop. And I just can't predict these wild price swings. They don't conform to any play in the metagame, it's just the weird volatility of the MTGO marketplace. So short term, I don't really want anything to do with Karn the Great Creator. Long term, I still really do like this card. It is a slam dunk eternal staple, and this price movement does sort of slowly and vaguely trend upward. There's just a lot of volatility along the way. I can't tell you if this card is going to be 40 tickets next week or 15. That's just the kinds of crazy movement you see from Karn right now. Long term, nice hold. Short term, no, staying away. Let's move over to Modern, where the biggest loser of this week was Renin 6 yet again. It dropped 13 more tickets this week, dropping from 100 down to a meager 87 tickets. Now, this looks at first glance like it might be the edge of a price cliff because, hey, back-to-back weeks of 10 plus ticket losses, but I don't see that on the price chart. In fact, most of these losses happened early last week. It's been fairly stable around the 87 to 90 ticket mark for the past couple of days. Also, yeah, not surprisingly, despite the price losses, Renin 6 was still the best-selling card of the week by a very, very high margin. So, is it time to buy in again? Well, I don't think so because, it's still 87 tickets and the Magic Online economy is just too volatile for me to ever recommend an 87 ticket card as a buy. On the other hand, with the Hogaak ban incoming and more interest being paid to Modern, I wouldn't be surprised if this card actually does gain some ground next week. I'm just a little too scared to buy in. The sneak of the week this week is Past in Flames, a card that was 1 to 2 tickets for all of 2018 and most of 2019, but it's now at 8 tickets and continuing to rise. I mentioned this card briefly in a video a couple of weeks ago, didn't really know why it was going up in price then. I've figured it out. It's a Saffron Olive budget Modern deck called Twiddlestorm, and it's only been gaining popularity over the past couple of weeks. That's fairly unusual for a Saffron Olive spike. Usually they tend to, go up in price after the deck list is published, and then they peak and then they drop, and a couple of weeks later the price is more or less where it used to be. This one's been gaining in popularity though. People really like it, people are wanting to play it on MTGO where it's still fairly cheap to build, and I wouldn't be surprised if Past in Flames continues to gain in price. At this point, I'm definitely not selling until after the 10 ticket mark, probably going to hold out for 15 tickets, but I'm going to monitor this price chart very closely over the next couple of weeks. Let's see what this deck does, and as long as it sticks around through the end of the month, I think you'll be able to cash out for at least 15 tickets on Past in Flames. Let's end the week by taking a look at the MTGO Trader sales data over the past 7 days. And as always, this gives us a great idea of which cards are buying and selling the best right now, regardless of price increases or decreases. Looking at overall sales by volume, the thing that stands out to me is that there's nothing really exceptional on this list right now. All is pretty quiet, and that tracks with the fact that late August is the quietest part of the Magic Finance calendar year. However, fall is coming, and with it comes renewed attention on Magic, especially Standard. And with that, I wanted to remind you, hey, if you play Standard on MTGO, you should probably pick up your Shock lands now. People are going to see the new Thrones of Eldraine cards and realize, hey, we still need Shocklands if you want to play these cards. Shocklands are still going to be the best land cycle in Standard, regardless pretty much of what's in Throne. So you probably want to get these. The price spike is not going to be as pronounced on Magic Online as it will be in paper because, fewer people play Standard on Magic Online these days, but it still will be there. So definitely pick these up at some point, probably by the middle of September if you think you're going to want them. Moving on to overall sales by price, it won't shock you to know that Renin 6 and Force of Negation are right there at the top of this list the way they have been all summer. What might be a little more surprising is the fact that Teferi Time Raveler and Leyline of the Void are the number 3 and 4 best-selling cards of the week by this metric, which is fairly unusual for cards with this low a price tag. That tells me that people are being fairly conservative, both because it's, late August when people aren't buying much Magic anyway, and also about what they're purchasing before the Hogaak ban comes down in Modern. That's going to change in a hurry. People are going to be more focused on Modern over the next week, and it wouldn't surprise me if we see some major changes to this list in next week's video. And that's all I've got for you this week. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Chaz Andres, and I will see you again next Monday morning for another episode of This Week in Magic Online Finance.